keempat kita akan membahas realisme struktural.
Mata kuliah pengantar ilmu pengetahuan internasional
dan jurusan hubungan internasional. Kami dari Universitas Bina Nusantara.
Hai, aku Farhansi pertama. Saya akan jadi aktor utama dalam penjelasan ini.
Hai, nama gue Ranio. Saya di sini sebagai perancang konsep storyboard dan video ini, dan saya akan membantu Farhan untuk menjelaskan tentang realisme struktural. Hai, nama saya Andi. Saya sebagai video editor dan pemegang festival video.
Hey bro, lagi ngapain lu?
Hai, nama gue Aldi. Gue adalah kameramen dalam pembuatan video kali ini.
Struktural adalah satu cabang dari teori realisme yang melihat dari masalah sistem internasional atau sistem anarkis sehingga membuatnya berbeda dengan realisme klasik yang melihat dari masalah internasional yang berasal dari sifat dasar manusia.
Traktor realisme struktural Rousseau pada abad ke-18 yang menyanggah dalam bukunya The State of War. Hal-hal tersebut munculkan dari sifat manusia, namun sistem anarkis yang melahirkan rasa takut, cemburu, kecurigaan, dan ketidakamanan di bukunya. Kenneth Walsh pada tahun 1979 dalam bukunya Theory of International Politics, sistem anarki melahirkan keadaan di mana negara harus memaksimalkan keamanan mereka demi menolong diri mereka dalam kekuasaan internasional. John Bessemer pada abad ke-21 yang bukunya Tragedy of Great Power menyatakan anarki dalam sistem pertolongan diri sendiri memaksa negara untuk memaksimalkan letak kekuatan relatif mereka. Yang keempat, Zakaria tahun 1998 From Wealth of to Power muncul pada abad ke-20 tentunya. Perhitungan sistem politik dunia yang dibuat oleh realisme struktural tidak memadai sehingga harus ditambahkan dengan perhitungan yang lebih baik berdasarkan tingkat bagaimana kekuasaan dirasakan dan bagaimana kepemimpinan dilaksanakan.
Sifat-sifat realisme struktural. Sifat pertama adalah defensive realisme, yang artinya adalah memperkuat kekuatan militer yang hanya untuk mempertahankan diri. Teori ini dibuat oleh Walsh. Sifat kedua adalah offensive realisme, yang artinya adalah bertahan dan menguasai negara lain, dan teori ini dibuat oleh Realism.
Beralih pada penggunaan realisme dalam kehidupan sehari-hari. Realisme yang merupakan teori rasional digunakan sebagai kacamata atau perspektif dalam proses internasional. Salah satu contoh kasus yang dapat kita lihat melalui perspektif realisme struktural adalah Perang Dunia II antara Jerman, Jepang, Italia melawan Amerika, Rusia, Prancis, Inggris, dan Singapura. Dalam perspektif realisme, adanya perang ini merupakan suatu konsekuensi dari sistem dunia yang anarki dan sikap negara yang egoistik, seperti juga manusia yang selalu berusaha beroleh kepentingan nasional dan menjadikan survival daripada negaranya sendiri sebagai kepentingan utama. Dari perspektif realisme, dapat dijabarkan bahwa kerjasama yang terjadi antar negara dalam perang merupakan suatu cara yang ditempuh demi mendapatkan kepentingan nasional masing-masing negara.
We'll begin our examination of international relations theory with one of the most dominant approaches in the field, and that is realist theory. Realists believe that states are primary actors. So think about all those actors we've already talked about in this class. individual actors, international organizations, to realists, these actors are not as important as our states, and particularly great power states. Think also back to our discussions of anarchy. International anarchy, meaning that there's no central authority in the global community, realists are particularly concerned with the international anarchical environment in which states operate. The international anarchical environment contributes to what realists call self-help. Remember when we talked about if you're Trinidad and Tobago and somebody invades you and you pick up the phone and call 911 and somebody may come or not come to help you? Realists suggest that all states have to be capable of helping themselves. So international anarchy leads to a self-help system. The global community is one that's very uncertain, and to realists, it's fraught with all kinds of potential conflict, potential enemies, and so therefore states have to be prepared to help themselves, to protect themselves, and to defend their sovereignty. States must be prepared to arm themselves in order to protect themselves. As you might imagine, this could lead to what we call an arms race or a conflict spiral. It's hard to distinguish between offensive and defensive capability. So think about the gun that one person might have at home under their pillow to protect their home and their property and their family. That gun could also be used to offend their neighbor or to go down the street and rob a liquor store. It's very difficult to distinguish between the offensive and the defensive capability of that weapon. The same is true for states. When states develop military capability, it's very difficult for other states to know whether they intend to use those weapons for offensive or defensive purposes. So realists suggest that because of this offensive-defensive dilemma, they race against each other to arm themselves in order to protect themselves in this self-help environment. Now, newer forms of realism, what we might call neorealism, emphasizes power in the global community and power among states, but it looks at the distribution of power across the global community. Instead of focusing on aggressive behavior among states and how states might be capable of defending themselves or offending others, neorealists are really looking at the systemic nature of power distributions. So they're going to look at this concept called polarity, unipolarity, bipolarity, and multipolarity. That has to do with the distribution of power across the entire global community. Is power concentrated in the hands of a couple of powers, balancing each other out, like in a bipolar system? Or is power concentrated in the hands of many, like you would find in a multipolar system? So neo-realists, or what we might call structural realists, tend to focus on that distribution of power rather than individual state power. This has implications for what we call offensive and defensive realism. Distinctions between the kind of power that you need to develop and the amount of it. So a defensive realist, for example, might focus on just minimal levels of security. Am I secure enough to avoid any kind of attack, any kind of interference in my country? An offensive realist is suggesting that it's more important to be able to dominate others, and you need to have enough power in order to influence others around the world. So even within neorealism, there are distinctions we can make between offensive and defensive capability. So now that we've explored both realist and neo-realist approaches in international relations, let's put those lenses on. Remember how we talked about constructing lenses? Let's put on our realist and neo-realist lenses and look at the global community. Look at issues like nuclear weapons development in Iran, militarization in China. If you're wearing your realist lenses, how would you analyze those particular decisions and how would you respond?